Today is Friday, July the 12th, and it's the end of the week, and we can see that the Dow was on a tear right from the open with reasonably good volume, as was the NASDAQ, even steeper. S&P 500, a little low on the volume, but look at that. We closed over 3,000, 3,013. Remember, our target is around 3,020. The day was mostly green. Healthcare suffered a little bit. Utilities suffered. They're a safe haven. So on a day like today, people are going to be selling utilities and buying the faster moving stocks. Advancers led decliners by about 2 to 1. So that is going to take our stock market breadth just a little bit higher into overbought territory, but not overbought until it reaches this line up here. So let's now take a look at the charts, but why don't we take a look at the weekly charts, because we see that the S&P has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 up weeks since it started that pullback in April, and that was right after earnings ended. And then we pulled into a tailspin. We could see the same happen because earnings are starting in earnest next week, starting, I believe, mainly with the banks. But take a look and see what earnings are coming up. Look at earnings.com. Make sure that you know the earnings date for all of the stocks that you hold on to. You've noticed by now that I only trade 6 or 7 different stocks, so that's why we look at the same charts over and over again. But I feel comfortable doing this because I'm looking at the same charts. And I've been looking at the same charts pretty much now for about 10 years. I mean, I've had some other stocks in my watch list here that I've traded from time to time, but these stocks have been the core of what I spend my time focusing in on and trading around by holding the stock and then selling calls out of the money around the stocks that I'm holding, which is a very low risk position. So if we were to have hit 322.69 today, we would have hit this trend line. There's some room to play in that because, trend lines can be drawn differently by different people, but roughly we're going into the 3020 area where this trend line is going to take people are going to take notice of it. It's going to be the third point of a trend line. Apple up $1.54 today. Its weekly chart shows a little bit less than last week. Still a ways to go to reach the most previous high, which was a 78.2% comeback from this high to this low. Now the 68.1 this week was our stopping point. And it has been for 2 weeks. 68.1%, that's called the golden ratio in Fibonacci terms. Let's look at Caterpillar. Caterpillar had a huge day today, up $4.39. I don't know why. Their earnings are coming up. I don't think it's next week. I think it's the week after next, but it's on my calendar, believe me. This is the set of fib lines that we're looking at, and we're into the cloud. We're into the weekly cloud, and the Chiku span still has room to go before the 200-day simple moving average stops it. Let's look and see on the daily chart. We stopped just below the 78.2% fib retrace from this high to this low. The 200 was where we bounced off of yesterday. I didn't add more stock. I didn't expect a $4 pop, so now I expect some kind of a pullback. We'll hit the 78.2% before we pull back. Maybe after this huge move up on Monday, we might pull back a little bit. We still have the flat cloud, although the flat cloud has already had its attraction on the price that was starting to get away at the beginning of the month, the beginning of July. Volume has been consistently low. Even on this big up day, the volume has not been reaching the 20-day average for volume. GDX, which I still in a half a position on, finished exactly at 2620, which I tweeted out was going to be equal to its previous high for this cycle. It certainly has a lot more room to run. You can see that it's been as high as 3160, but if we look at the Fibonacci from that area, we're just above the 38.2, so we're heading back to full. Well, that would be 61.8 if we'd drawn it in the other direction. Sorry, this is where? This is, no, this is, it's this one right here. It's this low back in 16 to the all-time high in 16. So it took 3 years, sorry, it took 8 months to make this run. And we pulled back not quite to this fib level here. We should be drawing it the other way around, but I'll do that over the weekend and show it to you differently on Monday. Our weekly shows it ended up as high as it has been in previous weeks, but I think the key thing today that stopped it is that this was the previous, a little bit higher than the previous closing high. For some reason I drew it there, when in fact it was probably here, 2620, and we finished at 2624. Any move up on Monday, I'm definitely going to be adding to GDX, which is going to move up on the price of, with the price of gold and with any weakness in the dollar. And if the Fed does lower the rates on July 30th, then that will weaken the dollar. WDC had another great day today, just topped at 78.2% Fibonacci retracement. So expect some sort of chatter to happen here. It would take a very bullish move to really blow right through that 78.2. Usually when you get through 78.2, you are eventually going to get to the 100% and a full retracement. On a weekly basis, we're in the cloud. The Chiku span still has room to run, and price still has room to run until it gets up to the top of the cloud. WHR, remember I'd bought the stock at 146 something at the beginning of the week. When it started to tail off, I sold the 145 calls. So now I had to roll those 145 calls into next week, basically rolling them for only $68 profit on 400 shares, but a substantial $2.32 now for each 145 short call next week. So I think that that is a pretty safe trade. And if we pop up over the 38, stay over the 38.2% next week, then I'll assume that those shares are going to be taken from me next Friday, and I will go and buy some more and maybe sell the 147s or the 150s. So that's the summary. What does it mean for next week? Next week I'm pretty sure we are going to test this trend line at 3023, and every day that goes by, that trend line gets a little bit higher. So keep an eye on that.